Russia's war in Ukraine has been largely stalemate amid heavy fighting in the east, particularly around the town of Bakhmut in Donetsk province, which for nearly 9 months has been the stage of the longest and bloodiest fighting so far. Russia has stepped up its offensive actions over the past few days on the Bakhmut-Avdiivka-Mariinka front in the east, where Ukrainian defenders are facing increased pressure from Russian shelling, airstrikes, and infantry attacks, Kyiv said on April 26. The UK Defense Ministry said that there had been fighting on the outskirts of the town as Ukrainian troops tried to defend Road 506, which is their main supply route, as other supply options could be complicated by the muddy conditions on the unprotected line. In the Zaporizhzhia region, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed the modern radio-electronic warfare station MKTK-1, a Judoist belonging to the Russian occupiers. Meanwhile, in the Luhansk region, the Ukrainian Armed Forces also destroyed a BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicle and a Russian invader Ural truck. The unit's press service announced this on its page on the social network Facebook, publishing a related video edited from the footage taken by the unmanned aerial vehicle. Presumably, their operators found targets and set fire to them with unspecified weapons. Ukrainian military intelligence has reported Russian troops taking up defensive positions on a large part of the front line as the Kremlin prepares for Kyiv's anticipated spring offensive. Ukraine's intelligence chief Kirill Budanov noted in a media interview that Russia appeared to be ordering troops to dig along the broad front apart from in the town of Bakhmut, where the Russian offensive continues. Budanov told RBC Ukraine, "They have completely switched to defensive positions everywhere. The only places on the front line where they made any attempts were in the town of Bakhmut, an attempt to cover the town of Avdiivka from the north, and local fighting in the town of Bakhmut. Marinka." Russian troops and Wagner's group targeted their attack on the battered eastern town of Bakhmut, the Ukrainian military said. The situation in Bakhmut is constantly changing because there is a positional war going on, said Serhiy Cherevety, spokesman for the eastern group of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. This was a defining moment in the war for the Kremlin. Russian leaders have publicly invested what little resources they have left in a so far unsuccessful push for the strategically insignificant city of Bakhmut in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. The heavy losses on both sides during a fierce winter in which the city had been mistreated beyond recognition did not yet reflect the small gain the Russians would have if they finally took control of the entire city. The previous day on April 25, the missile and artillery units, as well as the aviation unit of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, destroyed 10 attackers towards Kherson last night. The Tor M2 anti-aircraft missile complex, the Hyacinth B 152mm howitzer, the electronic warfare station, the Murom video surveillance complex, 5 armored vehicles, armor and observation post of the Russian invaders. This was reported by the press service of the Southern Operational Command in a recent report posted on its own official page on the social network Facebook. Meanwhile, a few days ago, Ukrainian forces managed to cross the Dnipro River in the south of the country for the first time since the Russian invasion began, according to conflict analysts. Speculation continues to mount over Ukraine's long-awaited spring offensive aiming to push 100 miles south of the river, at least as far as annexed Crimea. Attention focused on a potential Ukrainian counterattack, which is expected in the coming weeks and months. However, a British military analyst has warned that Ukraine is unlikely to gain any substantial territorial advantage and could be left militarily in a weaker position with its army and ammunition reserves dangerously depleted. Meanwhile, the Wagner Group began to be augmented by Russian conventional forces and other private military companies, notably PMC Redut. This PMC reportedly assumed responsibility for the position of newly captured Wagner troops, most likely somewhere near Kremov. Unfortunately for Wagner, PMC Redut did not follow Wagner's orders and allowed Ukrainian troops to retake the area. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces reported on April 26 that Russia had lost 188,410 troops in Ukraine since the start of its full-scale invasion on February 24 last year. This number includes the 640 casualties suffered by Russian forces over the past few days. As the 9-month battle for Bakhmut rages, Ukraine's defenses in the eastern city are now being integrated into a much deeper defense zone that includes the western city of Chasiv Yar, the ministry added. Meanwhile, Wagner Group boss, Kremlin-backed private mercenary Yevgeny Prigozhin, disputed the Institute of War Studies' assessment that relations between Wagner and the Russian military ahead of Ukraine's planned counteroffensive had improved, ISU said in its latest war update. Prigozhin called ISW's assessment sham, saying he would not trade ammunition for his people even for friendship with God, the think tank reported. Prigozhin has criticized the Russian army's operations in Ukraine to soften his rhetoric, in both cases often seeking leverage to procure more ammunition for his troops fighting in Ukraine from the Russian Defense Ministry or to deflect blame for losses. The UK Ministry of Defense reports that during April 2023, Russia's average daily casualty rate is likely to fall by around 30%. It follows the massive Russian casualties during January-March 2023. Russian losses were likely reduced as their winter offensive attempt failed to achieve its objectives, and Russian troops were now focused on preparing for the anticipated Ukrainian offensive operation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that more than 60 museums and galleries in various regions of our country have also been destroyed or damaged by the invaders since the invasion began. He said 2 women were killed in a Russian attack using an S-300 missile on the Kupiansk Museum in the Kharkiv region. The town was about 10 kilometers, 6 miles, from the front line. Ukrainian troops are better armed and trained by NATO than ever before, and they must have good real-time insights from their Western allies to dismantle any gains.